So today should be pretty cool because we're going over to Pierce Auto Center. They're letting me borrow a vehicle that I've been wanting to check out for quite a while. It's worth over $100,000 and it's a family luxury SUV from Jeep. So if you jump onto Jeep's website right now and look up the Jeep Wagoneer and the Jeep Grand Wagoneer, you'll notice something that's kind of interesting. So at the top of the website, you'll notice called Wagoneer by Jeep. They're actually using this as a sub-brand of Jeep. So what it is basically they created a luxury brand under the Jeep name. It's similar to what GMC did with the Hummer. So the Hummer, as you notice, is a GMC Hummer, but you don't see the GMC name all that often. So basically they are creating a luxury vehicle under the GMC and now under the Jeep name with the Jeep Grand Wagoneer. And that's what we're gonna be checking out today. And in fact, we're actually checking out the nicest version of it, which is over $100,000. And that is the Series 3, which again, going into, it's called the Series 3 instead of something like the Overland, the Rubicon, of all the terminology that they use with the Jeep brand, they have completely done away with. And now it's things like a Series 1, Series 2, Series 3, and I think they have a couple others, but it doesn't overlap with the Jeep name. So I'm really interested to check out what Jeep has been creating as a luxury brand. So this should be pretty cool. So let's get over there and take a look. And here we are. So this is the Jeep Grand Wagoneer. And this, of course, as I mentioned earlier, is the Series 3. So the Series 3 is the nicest version. And I was looking at the window sticker up there, and the MSRP on this sits at over $110,000. So this is competing with things, you know, like the Cadillac Escalade, like the Lincoln Navigator, and a lot of those other full-size SUVs. And honestly, after just spending a couple minutes just driving it over here and getting ready for the video, I can say this thing is nice. Especially in the interior, I think that is what stands out to me as being the main thing that is probably one of the best out there. I think the proportions on the Jeep Grand Wagoneer are a little bit strange. I think it's a bit of a polarizing design. The windows are definitely on the taller end of things, and I think that kind of messes with the proportions. However, the front end is actually probably my favorite part of the SUV. I had mentioned a little bit earlier about how they created this Wagoneer brand underneath the Jeep brand, and that is actually starting up here. As you can see, it says Wagoneer on the grille, but it doesn't say Jeep anywhere. They kind of rely on that 7-slot grille there. And then alongside here, you don't have anything that says Jeep. It's just the Grand Wagoneer right there. And then jumping around to the back, of course, it only says Grand Wagoneer right there as well. The only Jeep logo I've found so far is actually in the taillight, which you can see right there says Jeep. That's the only logo on the exterior of this thing that I have found so far that says Jeep. So they really are leaning into creating a more luxurious brand with this. I've been talking to some people about the Grand Wagoneer, and it seems like this is a polarizing design. I think it looks really nice. I think the proportions are ever so slightly off just in the window area. And I think getting the blacked out trim would help out quite a bit with that. But outside of that, honestly, there isn't a ton to talk about on the exterior of this. It is pretty subdued. It doesn't have any crazy lines, doesn't have anything that's just really out there. And I think it looks nice. The proportions again are a little bit off, but it does look really, really nice. But I will say, we'll get into it later in the video. I want to jump into the interior and show you guys what's in there and kind of experience it together, because it really, really, really is a nice interior and I'm really impressed with it. But first, let's go ahead and talk about the powertrain. All right, so let's go ahead and jump underneath of the hood here. All you do to pop it is you just go ahead and pull that lever. It's exactly where you would expect it to be. And we'll jump under here. So underneath this hood is a 3.0 liter inline-6 engine that is twin turbocharged. And it's pretty impressive. Of course, it has plastic cladding on top of it to hide the engine, but this is actually a relatively new engine that all of the Jeep Grand Wagoneers have. It has a whopping 500 horsepower and 510 pound-foot of torque, which is actually pretty impressive for a vehicle like this. It's quite large, so it does take a little more horsepower to get it up and going, but I think that is actually a very healthy number for this thing. And then, of course, it is also attached to an 8-speed automatic transmission, which shifts pretty smoothly and works really well for a luxury vehicle like this. And so I honestly think it's a pretty good drivetrain, and I haven't heard a ton of issues with reliability, so it might be something that you can trust. Some things that I am noticing are little details that kind of make this more of a luxury vehicle over a Jeep, which is why they're creating this Grand Wagoneer brand underneath of Jeep instead of it just being a standard Jeep. So they do things like putting a little plaque right here that says Wagoneer, designed in Auburn Hills, Michigan, built in Warren, Michigan, and it's born in America. Now is my favorite part of the video, which is getting into the interior, of which, by the way, I found another Jeep logo. There is a Jeep right there. However, this is locked right now, and you do have proximity, so you just put your hand in there and it unlocks, and you just pull. And this is the interior. Look at that. I really like this tan interior. This has to be one of my favorite colors of any vehicle. We've looked at things like Jeep Grand Cherokees in the past that have a similar, kind of a little bit more of an orangish interior and with like the overland trim. This thing is actually very reminiscent of it. It's a little more tan than orange, of which I'm used to, but man, that just looks so nice. Of course, it also does move over here to the door panel as well. And you can see here, look at this wood finish. I think this is real wood. If it's not, it is actually really impressive because it really looks nice and has a little bit of a texture to it. And so that is really nice. This right here is your seat controls, of which I did use, and it works really well. And you can see these little things are actually buttons as well, capacitive buttons, and just the quality of this is just incredible. You can see just the wood. See, this wood goes all the way across the dash, meeting over here to where it says Grand Wagoneer. And it's just really upscale. Another thing that I really like is right here, you can see this little bronzy kind of finish right here. And so even the vents in this car are just really nice. You can see it carries over to there as well. And so all the vents look like that. It's just so nice. And then going back to how the Jeep brand is really not displayed on this car very much, you can see even the steering wheel here says Grand Wagoneer. You have a ton of steering wheel controls. I'm actually going to go ahead and turn on the car now, which is done right here. You can see over here, this is your start button. Got to push on the brake and everything comes alive. And you can see there the dash turns on. And then let's jump over here. The center screen here should turn on. There it is. All right, so now we have the center display on, and you can see it is extremely responsive. I really like it. Everything seems pretty well laid out. It looks a little bit weird on the screen right here, but it doesn't look like that on here. It is perfectly gray and white and stuff. Go through everything. Your seat controls and stuff, there are physical buttons right here. However, you can go into a little bit more depth by clicking on the comfort button. Wow, that actually took a little bit to pop up. That's kind of interesting. But yeah, so these are all of your climate controls. You can do your seats, you can do massage, you can do rear. I don't know why that's not popping up. Anyways, so you have navigation, you can check your phone. I'm assuming these are vehicle stats. You can go into there. Oh, okay, so this is like mirror dimmer. So this does have up here is a camera. You can set your mirror dimmer there. Second row headrest. So basically what that does is, you can see, and then if I press the third row, it drops all those. And why you want that is actually so you have a little bit better visibility. So if nobody's sitting in the back seat back there, lowering those headrests makes it a little bit easier to see past them. This is actually a cool feature. So you hit this fam cam, and it gives you cameras all throughout the vehicle here. You can see this is your second row, third row. This is a closer up of the third row. So let's jump back here. This is your rear view camera. So you pop that on and it jumps to your rear view camera. So really quick, now that we're on this screen, I want to talk about my favorite feature in this SUV, and it has to be that passenger screen. It's just kind of crazy. So you just press this button right there, and it turns this display on over here. So you can actually see a lot of the same stuff that you see on this infotainment center by going over to here, and it gives you a bunch of different widgets and stuff like that. So you can scan through there, and you have a touch screen of your own as a passenger. However, you'll notice as I'm sitting in the driver's seat over here, I can't see that screen. So that makes it really safe. So the passenger over here can use the passenger screen while the driver is driving and still be safe while doing it. So that is actually a really cool feature. And I think this has to be my favorite feature of this whole SUV, even though it's an incredibly nice SUV. I think that's just a really neat feature that you don't see in SUVs less than, $110,000. Moving on from that, we're gonna go down into this screen. So this is your climate controls. Of course, you do have these physical buttons up here, which is amazing. So you can get your climate going for the most part without looking away. But if you wanna get a little bit more in depth, you can just click this button and it turns your climate controls. So you actually have access to climate controls in the center screen up here, but also into this lower screen, which gives you a little bit more dedicated. Of course, you have your front seats. And this screen right here is just like really refining your seat comfort and stuff, which is really nice. Of course, this does have massage. Again, $110,000, it better have massage. And you have full functionality there. Your rear seats, you can turn on and off your climate there really easily. And then if you just want to get rid of this screen so it's not showing up when you're driving, You just click that button and it turns right off. And then moving back up to this top screen, you can see there are some capacitive buttons right there for like things like your heated seats and stuff like that. Right here, turns on heated steering wheel. I really want that in my Tahoe, but you know, it's from 2007, so that makes sense. And then over here you have the passenger capability of doing the same stuff, turning on and off their heated seats and stuff. All right, so now that we've gone through the two main screens here, let's move a little bit farther down. There are a ton of buttons back here, as you can see, that are things like your tow haul mode. This is your lane keep assist. You can press that and turn the lane keep assist on and off, which is nice. I think that it actually does have a lot of other features. I'm not sure the extent of the lane keep assist, whether that is actually like self-driving where you can like remove your hands from the steering wheel. I'm gonna assume it's a very good possibility, but I'd have to look a little bit further into that. And just a bunch of different buttons that you would get in a normal vehicle. However, one kind of cool button right here is the mysterious button. What does this do? Let's click it and see. Oh, look. It's hiding a whole storage space behind there. I actually didn't know that, but it's actually have a QI wireless charger back here for your cell phone, which is kind of cool. So you can actually keep your cell phone out of sight while you're driving, but it still can charge and it's easily accessible just by clicking that button. So that is actually really cool. And then of course you do have USB-C, USB-A, a couple different versions, auxiliary. You do have an HDMI for the passenger screen. I think you can actually watch movies over here on the passenger screen just by plugging in your HDMI cord right there, which is pretty wild. So let's go ahead and close that up. All right, so a little bit farther back from here now is going to be your shift knob. So this is pretty standard. You just twist this, it goes to between park, reverse, neutral, and drive. That is pretty normal. Here you have all of your different drive modes. So if you go down to sport, it relates over here to this screen, which is kind of cool. So let's flip through. So you have auto, you have snow, you have sand and mud, and then a rock mode, which I assume you have to go into 4 low to be able to do that. But it's kind of cool to be able to shift between those pretty easily. Over here is kind of cool. So this actually, you can't really tell what this is. However, what it is basically you can just change the ride height of your car. So you just flip down on that one and it changes the height of the vehicle, which is pretty neat. I think this also does automatically change, which is why it's beeping here. When you do change this, it lowers it down. So if you put it in sport mode, it's going to lower it down to the lowest setting because it needs to have better aerodynamics just for better handling, which is kind of interesting and kind of cool. Farther back here, you do have cup holders. You have these little slots here to be able to put your cell phone and then, you know, probably your keys and stuff. A little bit farther back, you can slide this back, and down here is a little bit of a storage. I assume it's more meant for like cell phones and stuff because you do have a USB-A and a USB-C charger, which is cool. And then under here is going to be your kind of glove box. However, you'll notice here there is a little icon which is with a snowflake, and because this is refrigerated, so you press that button and it refrigerates it. So if you wanted to refrigerate drinks or something like that, you could just throw it in there and easily refrigerate it, which is a cool feature. So before we get into the back seat, I do want to talk about what's above us, and that has got to be this panoramic sunroof. So of course this is a 2-panel sunroof, so it covers things for the driver as well as the second seat, and then there is a 3rd sunroof in the back as well, so everybody gets their own sunroof, which is pretty cool. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into the back seat, and that is actually a really nice place to be as well. This is a nice luxury SUV, and the back is no different. So I went ahead and moved this little cover over here because it is raining out here and I don't want to get this thing dirty. But as you can see, even in the back, like those front seats look really, really nice, and the wood trim carries over even for the driver probably can't even see this. So this is more for the back passengers. This wood trim is here. You can see right here, they even have their own center console. I don't know if you noticed that. So this is the 2 captain's chairs set up here, which means they have a center console with their own charging. And then of course underneath is going to be more storage, but this is not refrigerated. So if you want to refrigerate, you're going to be doing it up there. And so that is just cavernous down in there, which is cool. But my favorite thing in the back seat again has to be the screens. Yes, this SUV has screens in the back. So this is actually really all just your climate control. and your seat controls and that kind of stuff. So you can actually turn on and off this screen. You just click that and then you can turn it back on just by tapping the screen. But you can turn it all on yourself by just clicking that button. And this is actually, I'm noticing, a little bit more responsive than up here. It's possible this car just needed warmed up, and that's why that was taking a little bit longer down there. However, this screen works really, really well. So you can turn up and down the fan just by clicking those buttons. You have your heated seats just by clicking those buttons. So you can change all that. And you can change your temperature by just sliding that dial. Interesting. So that is actually kind of interesting. So it seems like it actually has a little bit of a delay there. So, I mean, hey, it's not too bad considering it's just primarily used for climate controls, but it is cool to have this screen like this. And then in front of that screen, you are down here. So let's bring the camera down here. So you do have more USB chargers. So 2 more. So there's USB-A and a USB-C here. You do have a house style wall outlet like right there, a standard cigarette lighter right there, and then more chargers here. So the middle passengers here have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different chargers in the middle seats here. So if you needed to charge 8 devices, you can easily do it right there. And before we get into the third row, I again just want to express how nice the interior is. Even in the second row here, you have this really nice stitching. The leather is just really, really high quality, and it is just really, I can't say, I don't know if it shows up on the camera, but the interior in this thing is so nice. I really, really like it. I think this tanned interior honestly is coming back into style, and I am pretty excited about it because I think it looks really, really nice. Even over here, you can see like the Macintosh sound system lights up, which is cool. Door panels look really nice. Right here is a sunshade that you can pull up. And again, before we get into the third row, I want to show you guys space. I probably have a good, like, I don't know, 8 inches to the seat above me. And then as for headroom, I have probably about 4 inches. I'm about 6 foot, 6'1", so space in the second row is really, really good. And with that said, let's get in that third row and see exactly how to do it. I have not popped this third row before, so we'll see what that is like. All right, so let's see if I can figure it out. So there is buttons right here. And so what you can do, so I think this is the seat right here, and I think that button is actually the seat over there. So let's press this button and see what happens. Oh, actually that went to the third row. So let's put that back up. So these are electric third row. So you push that button and it automatically raises and lowers the third row, which is cool. But let's figure out how to get into the third row. Ah, okay. So you just pull that, that's easy enough. I probably should have known that. Let's see, does this pop up? I don't know if it does. Interesting. So I'm actually gonna move this little piece of paper back there so I don't mess up their nice carpeting. And let's step in. All right, so we are now in the third row here. Let's go ahead and I'm gonna raise this. No, I pressed the wrong button. So that's kind of cool. You can see that go down and then go back up. So all that is just at a touch of a button. That's pretty cool. Let me go ahead and lift up this second row here to see how much space there is. And so this is one of my biggest issues with my Tahoe. So it's something I pay attention to a lot is my Tahoe is a third row, but they do not maximize the rear space very well. And so it is nice to see. You can see right here, I have plenty of space with my knees. I am sitting in the third row. Again, I'm 6 foot, 6'1", and I have no problem with space whatsoever, so that's good. And then my head, of course, is not really an issue because there is the sunroof here. You can actually close this one. So that is our third row sunroof, which is cool. And then as for amenities, let's go over here. You can see right here is more chargers for the third row. So you have the USB-A, USB-C, and this right here is actually an adjustment. So it moves this seat forward and backwards. And then of course you do have cup holders. And then on my side over here, you have the exact same stuff. So you can actually charge up to 4 things in the third row of this SUV, which is pretty impressive. Which, by the way, I just figured out how to roll the second row forward. So I'm gonna show you guys how to do that. Again, you guys are experiencing this car with me. I have never really spent much time in one of these. And in fact, before today, I'd never been in one. And so I am learning this interior with you guys. So I'm gonna show you guys exactly how to move the second row forward now. So here we are, there is actually a button up here. So you can press this button right there. and it moves everything forward, so it actually gives me space to step through. I kind of stepped over that seat earlier, so that is a much better way of doing it, and that's actually kind of genius putting the button up there. All right, so one place we have not been in this vehicle yet is the rear hatch and seeing what the rear capacity looks like. So we're gonna go ahead and do that, which actually means I'm going to be using the key, which I have not shown you guys yet. So this is what the key looks like. You have your lock, unlock. This right here is going to be how you start the car remotely, which is really nice to have. Right here, you can see is actually kind of a cool thing. We talked about when we were in the interior of the vehicle, we talked about how you can lower and raise this vehicle, and what this button does, it actually lowers it so you can easily get into the vehicle. Obviously, this thing has quite a bit of ground clearance. With people like children, it's a little bit more difficult to get in. So you can press that button and it lowers down the body. You can see ever so slightly. Let's see if we can. You can see it's lowering itself a little bit there. And so it just makes it a little bit easier to be able to get into the SUV for things like groceries and children getting into the car. But with that said, what we're going to be doing is opening the hatch of this, and you just click that. It lets you know via lights. And this is what the back of this SUV looks like. So I gotta say, for a 3-row SUV, of course the 3rd row is up, this is actually quite a bit of space here. So on the left side over here, you have grocery hangers, which is really nice to have, a little knob to be able to hang groceries. Up here is your little button that you can click and it closes the hatch for when you're walking away. And over here, you have a cigarette style lighter right there. And then these are all of your different controls. So using these buttons right here, I can actually lower every single row, the 2nd and the 3rd row by doing that. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll show you guys what it looks like. And then you click this one right here. That seat goes down. And then of course you have your 3rd row here. That one goes very slowly down. And then finally, we have that last button, which has that. And then you have a pretty good load floor. So unlike a lot of other SUVs, obviously this one has that center console in the 2nd row. So you're not really going to be able to put a thing of plywood through there or anything like that. I don't know why you would in a $100,000 SUV, but it's not completely flat because of that center console. But outside of that, the seats are actually pretty flat. And so it gives you a lot of area to be able to put boxes or any of that kind of stuff. Then if you just want to raise those again, you just press that button. Gotta press it again. I accidentally didn't press it right. That comes back up. And then one bummer is actually that these two are not electronic, so I actually have to go in and pick those seats up. So let's go ahead and do that. You just pull that up, come around to this side, and then pull that up, and that's that. Oh, and before I move on, there is one other way to get into the back of this. You just put your foot under there, and it actually pretty reliably does raise up the hatch. One of the big issues a lot of people have run into is these hatches are not very reliable with kicking your foot. And I gotta say, all 3 times I have tried it, it has worked perfectly. So, and with that, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and close this right here. You can see it is going down on its own. And that's about it, guys. So this is the Jeep Grand Wagoneer Series 3. So my thoughts on this thing are, this really does compete with a lot of those other SUVs out there in that price point. The interior of this thing is amazing. It is definitely one of my favorite interiors I've ever seen, and I really like all the different screens that you have there. I like that it has the center console in the 2nd row. I like the stitching on the interior. I think the major downside to this, I think, is the proportions, as you can see on this window right here, are just a little bit off. So I'd love to hear from you guys. Do you like the styling of this SUV? Do you not like the styling of this SUV? And what do you guys think about the interior? I'd love to hear down in the comments and see what you guys have to say about it. I think for the price, this actually might be a good deal. When you're comparing to things like Mercedes, BMW, GMC, Yukon Denali's and stuff like that, this actually is extremely nice. And for the price, I do think it's worth it, guys. And so if you guys like this one, make sure to give Pierce Auto Center a call, because they did help me out by letting me borrow this. And I think you could probably get your hands on this one if you really wanted to. So have a great one, guys.